In this video I'm going to demonstrate the first line and first letter pseudo-elements. The CSS specification describes pseudo-elements as abstractions about the page structure beyond those specified by the document language, and in the case of a web page that's HTML. Don't worry if it sounds as clear as mud. To show an example of what it means, let me change the width of the document window. As I move it narrower and wider, you can see that the text is reflowed. So there's no way in the HTML markup to indicate the first line of a paragraph. But it's very easy to style the first line using the first line pseudo-element, which has been part of CSS since the very beginning, so it's supported by all current browsers. Let's open the style sheet, and I'll create a style rule using the first line pseudo-element to display the first line of each paragraph in uppercase. We need the text transform property and set it to uppercase. And if I refresh the design view, you can see that the first line of both paragraphs has been turned into uppercase. And if I resize the window, you can see that the first line is in uppercase, but the length of the line is constantly changing, and so the letters that are in uppercase are also constantly changing. To apply this style to just the first paragraph, I'm going to use an adjacent sibling combinator with H1 and P first line, and you'll see that now only the first paragraph has its first line in uppercase. The other pseudo-element that I want to talk about is first letter, to create a drop cap. Of course, you could wrap the first letter of a paragraph in a span tag and assign it a class, but using the pseudo-element avoids the need for unnecessary markup. I'm going to apply it just to the first paragraph, so again I'll use an adjacent sibling combinator, H1 plus P, and then the first letter pseudo-element. And I'm going to make the font size rather big, 48 pixels. And if I refresh design view, you can see that the first letter of the first paragraph is now much bigger than any of the other letters. So I can continue styling it, adding padding, floating it left, margins, background colour, to make it look a more attractive drop cap. To save time, I've copied most of the styles I'm going to apply to my clipboard, so I'll just paste them in here, and we'll look at it again. Now it's disappeared in design view, so if I turn on live view you can see the effect. What I've done is I've added some padding, I've floated it left, given it a little bit of margin on the right hand side to move it away from the text, given it a background colour, and changed the colour of the text itself to white. That doesn't look too bad, but to make it look a little bit more attractive I'm going to add a few CSS3 flourishes. To do that I'm going to go into the CSS Styles panel and select all, and then select the H1 plus P first letter style rule, and then add property, open that little menu, and I'm going to select text shadow, and this gives me a little icon which I click to bring up the options for text shadow. Now because I'm in live view, what I want to do is to see the effect of the text shadow as I apply it. So rather than going for the first options, I'm going to choose the colour. And I'm going to choose the colour as being black. And the X offset says how many pixels I want the shadow to be horizontal. The Y offset is how much I want it to be vertical. I'm going to make it just a couple of pixels. And it might be difficult to see in the video, but it's actually making the text begin to pop out. Just click away from there. Next, let's give that background some rounded corners. So I'm click Add Property again and go to Border Radius. This gives me the same icon, which I click to get the properties, and I'm going to leave the border radius being the same for all and make it, say, 6 pixels, I think. Yes, that's quite a nice little effect. Click away. And how about a little drop shadow on that box? Dreamweaver Live View doesn't yet support the box shadow property, so you need to switch to Category View in the Properties pane of the CSS Styles panel. So I'll just click the Category View icon, which is the first one on the far left at the bottom of the CSS Styles panel. And I need to go to the WebKit category and find, I'll need to expand that just to see the property names. There we are, WebKit box shadow. And the same, I'm going to select the color first. I'm going to make the color black, but I'm going to change the color format to RGBA so that I'll be able to add some alpha transparency to the color afterwards. And I'll select black. And don't want a very big shadow on this, so I'm going to make the X offset 2, the Y offset 2 pixels, and then give it a little bit of a blur for 3 pixels. Now, as you can see, that's a rather heavy color that we've got there. So I'm going to go directly into the style sheet, and I'm going to manually edit the RGBA value. The first 3 values, RGB, red, green, blue. The last one is the alpha transparency. And I'll change that from 1 to 0.3. Go back into Live View, and it's given me a rather delicate box shadow on the background. To ensure that border radius and box shadow work in all browsers, I need to add the vendor-specific properties as well as the regular properties, so I'll just quickly do that. Now that I've added the vendor-specific properties to the style sheet, I'm going to save it and view the page in 2 different browsers. This is what it looks like in Google Chrome. As you can see, the style for the first letter pseudo-element is correctly applied, but the first line pseudo-element has been ignored. And this is how Firefox has done it. It's applied the styles for both pseudo-elements, but look at the difference in the way that the first letter has been styled. Same style rules, browsers treat them differently. So using first line and first letter pseudo-elements on the same paragraph doesn't work reliably cross-browser, and also first letter can be difficult cross-browser too. So you shouldn't mix them if a uniform appearance is important to your design. Nevertheless, they're useful tools that can come in handy from time to time.